Hello beautiful person, this is Anton and welcome back to another super awesome tutorial on Python and essentially its use. If you wanted to find out what variables are and how variables work, this is a video for you. In the next few minutes I'll explain to you how all of this works. So what exactly is a variable? Simply it's a thing or an object that stores something inside of it. In Python, we often start with x as a variable because it just, because everyone learned math and at some point x was a variable in math. And here I can actually assign anything to it. For example, I'm going to use an integer 5 and assign it to a variable called x. Now, if I actually at some point in my program later on decide to use x, guess what's going to come up? 5. Same thing goes for another variable we can assign to be a, on here by the way, it doesn't matter if there's a space or not because that's how beautiful Python is, it doesn't really care. I'm going to assign a string to it and this string is actually going to be called 5. Now remember, strings and integers are different, and here if I actually bring up y afterwards, it will give me 5 as a string. So now you can actually see the difference between strings and integers in a little bit more detail. Now what do you think will happen if I add them? Well, you can't, and I'll show you example of this in the future, because these are actually different types. You cannot really add different types of variables. So if I try, error, it doesn't work that way. So we'll have to fix this later on using another principle called casting, so you can check it out in one of the future videos. Now, let's say we want to also make another variable, this time a float. So all these 3 variables right now, they're all 3 different types. One of them is a float, one of them is an integer, and one of them is a string. And the thing is, some of them I can add, but some of them I can't. Which ones do you think I can? Well, turns out I can actually add these 2, the numbers. I cannot add the string though. The numbers will give me, what is this? That's right, it's a float, and it will stay a float unless I change it into an integer using casting. But as you can see, the cool thing about any programming language like Python is that you can actually now start using variables to do some math. So instead of doing like 5 power 5 to try to figure out what the number equals to, I can actually just write the actual variables and they'll give me the same types of operations as before. So here I can start doing math really easy using relatively simple syntax, and basically there's nothing to it, you just add a bunch of variables together. Now the cool thing about this is that first of all, these variables stay with you for the rest of the program until you reassign them. So now I can actually decide, I can change the variable, I can decide to change this variable, and even though original was 5, it will now become x equals 10. So in my next program, if I call x now, it's now a 10. So this is the beauty of variables, is that you can always reassign them, you can change their assignments on the fly, and they will pretty much be the bread and butter of your programs. They will be the most essential tools that we'll be using. One thing I wanted to also add before I finish this video is that you can also add strings. You can actually do math with strings. So for example, if I say y plus y, can you guess what it's going to give me? Well, it will actually give me 2 5s as a string together. So this is kind of like adding 2 letters together, because that's what strings are in essence. They're really like letters. What do you think will happen if I say y multiplied by x? Now I told you before that you can't add them. It's impossible to add them, but you can actually multiply them. And the answer is going to be a bunch of 5s together, because remember our x is 10, so it adds 5 of these 10s in a row. And even though I can actually multiply by integers, it will not unfortunately work with floats. It's going to give you an error. And so here integers are actually fine, but floats, because they're more used in mathematics, cannot really be multiplied by essentially what is a letter. You could, however, convert this to an integer and then do it that way, but we'll talk about this in one of the future videos. For now though, that's really it for variables and basic stuff, but we'll come back to more of this and make it more complex in upcoming videos. Thank you for watching, stay beautiful, stay awesome, stay amazing, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. And don't forget to support this channel either by subscribing or Patreon. Bye bye.